Hey everybody, it's Michael. Today I'm going to show you how to do curved paper piecing, or we might say adding a vein, putting on a vein to one of the designs. Judy does a lot of curves, and this is her technique for curved paper piecing. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and get notified. And you can always find out more about me at michaelquilts.com. Follow me on social media, Michael Quilts on Facebook, michael.quilts on Instagram. And now we're used to sewing curves. A lot of times we're sewing curves together with our finished units, and we know how to do that. But this is actually within the unit itself. There's a curved piece, and let me just show you what I'm talking about. Let's look at these coral reef pieces. These units I'm putting together. So this entire seam is a curved seam that was done with paper piecing. Okay, I've already taken most of the paper off except for this little sliver here, but this is the technique. It's done in just lots and lots of patterns that she has. Okay, this is one that I've already started. I haven't trimmed it yet. Okay, but I've sewn this curve on through paper piecing, and I've got TRP lines that you probably see here. This one's coming out, but it's okay. I've already used it to match these up. But let me show you how to start this from the very beginning. This is the unit we're working on today. And I've got 8 of them here that I need to do. And for those of you who are new and still are having trouble finding out what the difference is between a foundation paper and a template layout sheet, on the newsprint, anytime you see unit something in bold, capital letters, it's usually a foundation paper that you're going to sew on. And you can see here there's sew lines, basting stitch line, those are also clues. This is for sewing, okay? These other pieces were used for cutting out, and I've already cut them, but that's, we'll go through some basics of how to tell what newsprint is what, all right? So here's my foundation. I can see that there's 2 sections. There's section 1, which is N5-1. There's section 2, it's shaded, N5-2. So I've got my 2 pieces that go with that. Even on the piece that I cut out, this one says section 1, N5-1. I know that's going to go to that. This one says section 2, N5-2, so I know it's going to go here. Now, when we're looking at these stacks that I've clipped, all of these are right side up. So I'm using a batik, so technically it doesn't matter, but I've cut it into its shape where it does. These are right side up. And the way I've prepared these is in the instructions. This particular piece had TRP lines on it. So I'm not sure if you can see that. You probably can. There's a TRP line that goes all the way across here, which is a great thing for this unit. There's the back side so you can see it. Okay, so I've sewn all of the TRP lines on all 8 pieces here. Okay, these don't have a TRP line. It's section 1 that we're getting ready to use. So let's just go through some of the very basics. If you already know how to do this, then skip forward. But always our process is to turn section 1 over so that we have wrong side facing up. Okay, wrong side up, so our good side is facing down. And on our foundation papers, we put a little bit of repositionable glue on the back right under section 1. Okay, so I just did that on one of these. I really want to do it on all 8, but I'm doing it on 1. This is, remember, this is wrong side up. Foundation paper goes onto it, and I need to cover this edge all the way down to this edge. I'm going all the way to this dashed line. And if you're new and if you read the instructions, a lot of times you're going to want to trace the dashed line onto the back. That's in the instructions that talks about that. Let's say that I was going to do that, and my method is usually to use a Sharpie on the front and mark it. I usually use the other thicker Sharpie, but anyway, I can see that. And actually with this particular printing, I can see all the way through it. That doesn't happen all the time. But I can also see it here. I mean, it's not hard to tell that this is the dashed line and that's the edge of the fabric. So I'm just going to line this up close to the edge and make sure that there's fabric underneath all of that, which there is. Okay, so what I do to one, I do to all. Thank you, Jackie Kunkel. And here we go. Jackie Kunkel is a CI that says, what you do to one, you do to all, and I always use her phrase. Okay. Now, on these repositionable glues, they're all slightly different, even if they're made by the same manufacturer. 3M Scotch. This one is the repositionable glue stick. It does not have a waiting time. Like, it says that you can apply it and stick it right away. Scotch 3M also makes the other one. It's white and yellow. It also says repositionable, restickable on it. And it says to wait 90 seconds before you apply it to something. But if you haven't used this before, this is turning it into, kind of like turning it into a Post-it note. So you put the glue stick on it. This one you don't have to wait. The other one you do. There's another one that you have to wait 40 seconds. But basically, once it's just here on the paper, you can stick it onto your fabric, and the residue will not stay on your fabric. Everything stays onto the paper as if it were a sticky note that you're used to those. Okay. Anyway, that's down like that. And it's a good enough hold for most pieces. If you get a really, really huge piece that's skinny and could be flopping around, you might consider using the other glues that Judy used to use with piece number 1, which is like Yoo-Hoo, or even the fabric glue pen for section 1. Just you don't want to hold a ton of it on there, because you're going to be pressing and you're going to heat that glue up, and you don't need a whole lot of that glue to fight getting off of your paper and your pieces. Okay, this is our last one. Okay, so there's my 8. Okay, so I have attached all of the section 1 fabric to the foundation papers with my repositionable glue. Now, the next thing that you would normally do in a regular unit is fold on line 1, trim, and then add your second piece and start sewing. But this is foundation paper piecing, so let's take a closer look at this unit. Our section 2 is this shaded section right here, and we have a curved line. So we need to be able to sew that curve, and we want to do it through paper piecing and not through traditional piecing. So Judy's technique is to sew a basting stitch onto your piece that will act as a guide. All right, let me bring that other piece back over to you. Okay, so you can see on this that there's the basting stitch line. This is a sew line because I've already sewn this one. And what you can see inside here is this is the sewing line that I sewed the pieces together. This right here, I'm not sure if you can still see it. That's the basting stitch. And you use that as a guide to place your piece. Okay, so this one has been completed, but it hasn't been trimmed. And I'm going to be showing you that in just a second. Okay. All right. Anyway, so we need to sew this basting stitch line. So we're going to do that at a 2.0. And let me switch over to the sewing machine. All right, stitch length is 2.0. Let me take that down now. There we go. Okay, these are easy peasy. This is going to be cut off, so nothing has to be perfect. But you do want to get on that dashed line as best you can. Basting stitch line 1. All right, here we go. Slow down. Okay, that's it. Okay, so you can see there's my basting stitch right there. We're going to do that 8 times. I'm just going to sew all 8 of these. Okay, so let's just sew the TRP line again. I'm going to sew this interior one. I'm just going to sew it until I get to the basting stitch line. Okay, and then I'm going to also sew this other TRP line. Might as well do it now while I'm doing them. Okay, on TRPs, she may say to take your stitch length up to like 2.8 or 2.5. I'm keeping mine at 2.0 for this, just because I'm finding my TRP lines, sometimes the stitching comes out. So I'm keeping it at the 2.0. Same as the basting stitch, 2.0. Okay, some people have asked, does it matter which way you sew the TRP lines? It doesn't. I mean, I can go either way. I tend to go from the interior to the outside, so from inside to out, but it doesn't matter. I definitely go off outside the line at the on the end here, because that gets trimmed off, so I don't worry about that. But generally, I don't know why, I like to sew from the inside to the outside. Okay, this is my last one. All of these prep steps really help you in the long run, save time. All right, so we've done all of those. Let's go over to the other camera. Okay, so let's see what we have. Hopefully you can see this. There's my TRP lines, and this is my basting stitch line. Okay, so on the basting stitch line, remember, this is the good side. So this is our paper side. This is the correct side of the fabric. It looks bad just because there are TRP lines sewn, but this is the correct side. These, almost all the time, everything is facing right side up. So this is the correct side of this piece. This piece is going to get sewn onto here. So let's remove the paper from this piece, and I don't want to tear the TRP line out that I sewed. There's that. Okay, so this is going to be attached. It's going to go here. So when we do our curved paper piecing, we just put right sides together, matching up these TRP lines. Now, one thing I want to talk about is your tendency might be to match this exactly. See how this line is going here and going like this? What we really want to do is put the piece up so that it's on that line and it's matching up to the sewing line right here. But when we fold back 1/4 of an inch, you want those to be matching. So at 1/4 inch, folded back 1/4 inch, that's where I want to see that the line creates a straight line once I fold it back. Okay, so it's like that. All right, so glue time. This is our fabric glue pen. All right, so I'm not going to glue right on the TRP line because I don't want glue on that stitching. I'm just gluing right underneath that basting line. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this. All right, so I'm placing glue right under that basting line, and all I'm doing with this piece is just gently allowing it to butt up next to that line. I'm not pulling or stretching or doing anything crazy. This is just very gentle. I just want this to be very gentle right there. I can run my finger along it. It's nice and smooth there. Let's do the other side. Okay, again, I'm going to avoid the TRP lines, and see, I'm just gently pulling. I don't want to say pulling really. I'm just gently maneuvering this piece so that it's butting up right under that basting stitch line. So what I've done there is great. All right, it's nice and flat. I can feel it with my fingers here. Let's glue one more, and then I'm going to do all the rest of them later. But let's glue one more of these. Okay, so we're removing the paper. going to go here, so I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to push back, just kind of fold over that 1/4 inch and see that it's matching. Right about there. Okay, I'm going to on either side of that TRP line, press down, and I'm going to glue just inside the seam allowance, all the way down, just in basting stitch, gently shaping this piece so that it's right under that basting stitch line. Did you see that? Okay, let's do the other side. Remember not to get glue on your basting or your TRP if possible. I mean, I've done it many times, but the more you can avoid it, the better. Okay, this is a nice gentle curve. That's it. So I've just glued that piece right under there, and this basting line creates this guide for you, so now you can do paper piecing on the curve. And here's the next step where we're actually going to sew on a line. Okay, I'm going to take this back down to paper piecing stitch length. I actually use a 1.7. We talk about using a 1.8 mostly, but I've been finding 1.7, my papers rip out so great. It's just, again, if you have to unsew anything, it's tight. All right, so the way we're doing this is I have this piece down. You are normally probably used to having this side up so that you can control all of the gathering and make sure that you're not getting any tucks. And the instructions, a lot of times she'll say you can do it paper side down or paper side up. If you do it paper side down, then you're going to use the 1/4 inch foot and sew a 1/4 inch seam just from the edge of that basting stitch that you put in there. Okay, so you can do that. I'm going to do it this way. This way is in the instructions too. And I'm going to show you how I do it this way. Okay, I'm going to start just a stitch or two on the other side of this solid line. This is sew line 2. Solid sew line 2. Here we go. Let me also mention that I backstitch on the edge of my pieces. That is not a Judy Niemeyer method, and no one ever told me to do that, but I just do it. Okay, here we go. So I'm feeling with my finger here that it's nice and smooth before I get up to the needle. I'm lifting. Do you see I have my finger underneath this whole unit? This fabric is down here still next to the feed dogs. And you do know that saying about baggy bottom, right? Keep the bottom, the baggier side, the fuller side towards the feed dogs, and they will help bring the fabric in and ease any little teeny bit of excess that you might have. Well, what I'm also doing is I'm taking my fingers and kind of pulling. I don't want you to pull, but I'm just sort of, as this is going through, making sure that this is not getting bunched up. Okay, so I've got my index finger here, and I'm feeling that it's smooth before it gets to the needle. I'm physically lifting up this piece with the paper, and then underneath, I'm going to peel this back, underneath, I'm moving this along as well, and I'm making sure it doesn't get bunched up. Okay, go nice and slow. Okay, I like my finger here. You might be one that wants to use a stiletto or a purple thing. You can certainly do that as well. I like the way that I can feel if it's smooth underneath there or not as I'm approaching. I hope you can see all this. Okay, I'm going to the, I'm on an edge, so I backstitch. You don't have to do this. It's just something I do. Okay. Okay, this is what we have. I'll show it to you from the other camera. I'm going to do one more of them though. Okay, this is sew line 2, the solid line. I'm on the edge of a piece, so I'm going to backstitch. Okay, I'm going to hold my finger right here because I can feel it's nice and smooth under there. I'm going to lift up, and then my other fingers are feeling that fabric underneath and making sure that it kind of moves along nicely underneath and doesn't get bunched up. Okay. Okay, so once we kind of push open with our finger, we can see that those TRP lines almost match up, Michael. They're really close. Close enough for me. But that's how this curve is done. It's a really nice curve. It's nice and smooth. It doesn't look jaggedy at all. Okay, so now we're going to press. Let's go over to our other camera. All right, so anytime I've sewn a piece, I keep that seam away from me, and I just use my fingers to gently push it open. Okay, we're going to use our starch pen. I do my starch pen on the top. Some people like to starch right in there. I do mine on the top. I've never had anything bleed or anything. So hot dry iron, just long enough to dry the starch. If I see that it's wet on the back, I may have used too much starch, but I go ahead and dry it there. All right, so that's the sewn unit. Let's do the other one. Starch pen. If you've never used the starch pen, these are great. It makes everything lay nice and flat, which is especially important if you're not using a batik. This batik is already going to lay flat, but it lays even flatter with the starch pen. But cotton prints, it really does wonders for those. Okay, so we've got them pressed. Okay, so here are our two pieces that just got pressed. All right, now our next step is we want to go ahead and trim this unit. We need to get rid of this excess fabric here, but we don't want to get rid of it until we have made this the shape that it needs to be. This is a common mistake. Once you learn that some of this is going to get cut away, your tendency might be to cut it away now, but if you do that, you've lost your shape. You don't know how to cut it out, okay? So cut it now. The proper order is to trim it now. All right, so trim it however you like. If you need a curved ruler, you can use one. I'm trimming on the outside line. I'm going to do a combination of just cutting freehand, and then I might grab a straight ruler for that straight section over there. Okay, now some of you might say, I haven't sewn that TRP line. Why don't I do that now? You don't need to on this unit, because you'll see as I turn this over, it's already sewn because I sewed it on that other piece when I added it, and they were really clever in making this continue so that it's one line and you don't have to sew a different TRP line. So you'll understand that the more TRPs you do. All right, so I just trimmed that. I'm trimming the smart corner. I'm going to trim here, and I can either do this one freehand or I could grab a little ruler. Whenever I use a little ruler to trim these blocks, I don't put the edge of the ruler on the outside line. I put the 1/4 inch marking on the seam allowance line, so the 1/4 inch from the inside, okay? There we go. Okay, so that one's trimmed. Let's trim the other one. Okay, I'll start with this ruler. Again, I'm putting my 1/4 inch marking on the 1/4 inch line inside of the outside edge. The rest I'm going to freehand. When you're freehanding, just please keep your fingers to the left or the right, if you are a lefty, of the blade and not in front. It sounds like news I don't have to tell you, but I should always remind you of safety. Okay, there we go. All right, so now these are trimmed. Now what we need to do is get rid of all of this stuff on the inside. Okay, we don't want all of this fabric in here. And remember, we've got our outside line already. So paper side down. Remember this, paper side down. I'm going to peel back this dark piece that's the vein now. And I'm going to expose, I can see my stitch line in here. We keep that. And then I can still see my basting stitch line. All of this is going to get cut away. So I'm cutting just inside the basting stitch line. I want the basting stitch gone. The rest will become a seam allowance. Okay, and now I've gotten rid of it. You can trim this little point off if you want. All right, so did you see that? I just got rid of all that stuff. And now this piece is the correct shape because we cut it first. Okay, let me show that to you again. All right, we've got the correct shape. We don't need this paper anymore. The TRP line, as you can see if I pull this back, it's already sewn where it's supposed to be. So I don't need to sew it again. But I do need to get rid of all of this excess. So paper side down, peel back what you sewed and what you trimmed to be the exact size you need, and rotary cut just inside that basting stitch line so that you're getting rid of the basting stitch that you sewed. Okay, off it goes. And now this piece is ready. Okay, so that is how you do Judy Niemeyer's curved paper piecing, adding on a vein. Okay, this was an easy one. Some of them are a little bit longer and may have a little bit of a more of a curve, but this is the general way to do it. So we'll come across that again in the future in another lesson, but here's your basics, all right? And let's just take a look at the quilt that I'm making that has all of this in it. I'm going to do this on my phone. Okay. So I have a lot of it up on the wall. Here are some units that go with it. Okay, but you can see how many, these are all the same technique. They're those veins. There's more of them here on the interior. So there's quite a few of them in this quilt. And then I was working on the same thing on my coral reef. So it's vein time here. All right, so I will show you the progress of this and how those fit in another video. But you have the basics down now of how to add on a vein and do curved paper piecing. Congrats. All right, that's it for today. So I will see you soon, okay? Bye-bye.